We discuss ways to create better characters in both stories and RPGs on this episode of the Woodland Fellowship. Hello, everyone. I'm Woody, and welcome to the Woodland Fellowship, a channel where storytelling and adventure gaming meet. Now, every story has three main elements: the setting, the plot, and the characters. Typically, as the different characters interact with each other, it generates the plot and it reveals elements of the setting. They all work together, but where should we start? If the story focuses too much on the setting and the background information, it may seem boring and feel like nothing more than a bunch of info dumps. If the story focuses too much on specific events of the plot, it may feel forced with various characters acting inconsistently or too conveniently to be believable. Now, we as an audience will often forgive various discrepancies in the plot or the setting, but only if we enjoy the characters enough. So that means that the quality of a story is going to be hinging on the quality of the characters. And so the key to making better characters, both heroes and villains, is by improving the starting point of their concept. So, whether you're thinking about writing a novel or a short story, or maybe you are wanting to get into the hobby of role playing games, here are four common sources for character concepts and how to improve them. Now, be sure to stay to the very end of the video where I'm going to be giving a bonus tip on how to improve your characters, regardless of which source you are using. Number one, self insert. Now, this is the weakest one of the four sources, and is also one of the most common starting references that new RPG players use when making their first characters. And that makes sense, as we know ourselves and our own motivations better than anyone else, and being able to imagine ourselves in someone else's position is a foundational skill in building empathy. Now, typically, when someone makes a self insert, we tend to make our ideal self, which is often more attractive, more popular, or more revered than we think we are. They're usually overpowered and unbelievably epic. Now, in novels and other stories, self insert characters are not always terrible, but it is often seen as amateurish. So, a unique way to handle this is actually to do an opposite self insert. So, think about ways that you yourself might handle or react to a situation, and then have your character do the opposite. Or, personality wise, if you tend to be more outgoing, well, then have your character act more shy, and vice versa. Now, this is a lot harder than it might sound at first. So, if you are going to make a self insert style character, the key to doing it well is to focus on the differences and write those down, the differences between you and your character. That way, you'll be able to see that regularly and remember these things. Otherwise, it can be really easy to revert back into what is familiar to you, and in the case of an RPG, maybe not do much role playing at all. Number two, character insert. Now, this is the next most common starting reference that new RPG players use, and that is to take a character from some other story or setting that they enjoy and try and just copy and paste them into this one. For example, just remaking Batman, or Loki, or Luke Skywalker, appearance and all. Now, this type of character source will be more allowable in a home RPG game, if at all, but using characters like this in a novel, for example, is pretty risky. Naturally, there could be a risk for lawsuits and copyright infringement, but worse still is that once your audience figures out that this is just a copied character, they will likely not finish the story or even support more of your work. So, if you are going to do a character insert, the key to doing this well is just to take nothing more than just inspiration from the original character. Do not treat it like a specific roadmap to follow, such as mimicking a voice style or having the exact same origin story and so on. Just make some specific changes from the beginning and then let the character evolve as the events in the story unfold. So that way, this character by the end can ultimately just be a different entity altogether. Number three, character synthesis. Now, this is generally a better way to handle using characters from other stories and settings than just simply inserting them in. And this is where you take a couple of different characters from other stories and then you just mix and match different parts together with lots of variations possible. For example, if you are going to mix Harry Potter and Jason Bourne, which elements from each would you use? Would you maybe use a particular skill set, like Harry's magic or Jason's improvised fighting? Or maybe a family background, like how Harry is an orphan or how Jason has amnesia? What about two other characters altogether? What would you get if you would mix Legolas and Sherlock Holmes? As you can see, these characters don't have to always come from the same genre of story either. So, if you're going to do a character synthesis, the key to doing this well is to recognize that the greater the initial differences in your characters, the more unique the new character will be. Your main goal in synthesizing is not just to make the character concept work, which it is, but it's also to make sure that this character fits within the setting. If you're going to mix Aragorn from Lord of the Rings and Rey from Star Wars, that might give you lots of really cool ideas, but that likely won't fit into a historic setting like the American Wild West, at least not without a significant amount of tweaking. Number four, starting with a character's philosophy and psychology. Now, this is where the starting point is not just some other character from other sources, but rather starting with a generalized question or concept about what a certain type of person would be like. This question, like all great ideas, begins with what if, such as, well, what if my character was elderly instead of a young person? Or what if my character was previously a prominent villain but is now on a quest for redemption after they have now lost their power and influence? Or what if my character has a debilitating disease or health condition, but now they're forced into an adventurer's life? Questions like this force follow up questions, such as, maybe in the case of the last example with the health condition, well, why are they adventuring? Maybe they need the money in spite of the health risk. Well, why do they need the money? Maybe they have debts to a local loan shark. Well, why did they need the loan in the first place? Was it just for healthcare? Or maybe for some other reason? And so on. Ultimately, this lets you make something even more unique than our other options, and this can also be more closely derived from elements within the setting, such as factions, locations, prominent members of society, and so on. So the key to doing this better is to let curiosity drive your exploration of the character. And then just be willing to ask lots of questions. Now, you can find lots of great examples of character surveys online to help guide you with those sort of questions, but I like to focus on just four things. So that way you can write these down if you want to come back to this. So, the first thing I like to focus on for my new characters is just to determine a key moment in their past. The second is to find a motivation based on a deeply held need. The third thing is to create a secret that they want to protect. And then the fourth thing is just to name one particular thing that consistently makes them angry. And there you go. That's a great starting point. And with that, you have your four key sources for character ideas. You have self inserts, character synthesis, and my favorite, character philosophy and psychology. Now, before I get to the bonus tip that I told you about, are you finding this video helpful to you? Please feel free to give it a thumbs up and make it more likely for other people to be able to find it and see this video. Plus, YouTube will save it to your profile, so that way if you want a refresher, you can find it in the future. Now, if you want to learn more, this is a new channel. So, hey, come join a community of people who want to learn how to tell better stories, run better tabletop games, and build better friendships in the process. Now, I made a promise to you earlier, so for those of you who are still here at the end, here is the bonus tip for creating better characters. Now, overall, regardless of which starting point you might use for a character idea, clearly define the character's weaknesses. and then really just lean into them and let them just be in the spotlight because it is those weaknesses that actually make our character interesting. Those weaknesses can be physical, mental, emotional, or social. Now, these challenges help give a goal and a challenge to overcome. It can also help build an interesting group dynamic as different characters need help from each other to help overcome those challenges. And you will actually learn more about yourself and what you can accomplish in spite of your own weaknesses, just as your character will. So, now I'm curious. What are the coolest character ideas that you might have now that you might want to explore? Go ahead and share that in the comments below, and then just check out some of these other videos. Thanks. See you next time.